What if we took the intriguing medical plot of Grey's Anatomy and merged it with the suspense and mischief of a series dedicated to insurance scammers? In today's video, we're about to dive into a story that would make even the writers of The Good Doctor feel inspired. Come on, we all know that in the world of medicine and insurance, there's always room for a little controlled chaos, and of course, some quirky characters. You're in the right place to enjoy a tale that combines medical cunning, humor, and a touch of intrigue. That being said, keep on your white coat and your mind open, because we're off on a journey that promises laughter, amazement, and who knows, maybe even a lesson or two. With all of you, the perfect prescription, the doctor who masterminded the greatest health fraud of all time. Welcome to the outrageous Texas scene, where a doctor and his gang of cronies went on a thrill ride into the exciting world of take the insurance money and run on federal healthcare programs. Yeah, you heard that right. We are not talking about a few loose dollars. We are talking about a staggering number. Imagine everything you could buy with $1 million amount, from an army of robot vacuum cleaners to your own private island. How crazy! In this context, a Los Angeles lawyer, Andrew Selesnik, dropped a sobering pearl of wisdom. To get that kind of money, you'd need to treat 1 million people. 1 million. That's more people than attending a giant panda's birthday party. We're talking mountains and mountains of patients. More people than you can imagine, and more health insurance cards than in a magician's wallet. It's like you're planning a mega health party. But hold on tight, this has only just begun. Meet the main course of this show. Our protagonist, a 60-something doctor named Jacques Roy, who, of course, already had quite a colorful history with the law. And no, we're not talking about getting a speeding ticket in his doctor's hot rod. This man was the protagonist of a trial that lasted no less than 6 long weeks. Yeah, his courtroom experience was like a marathon series on Netflix, only with lawyers instead of popcorn. In fact, the accusations against him were as varied as the ingredients at an all-you-can-eat buffet. Medical fraud here, medical fraud there. No doubt we can say that this doctor decided to diversify his criminal portfolio. But that's not all. The plot of this story leads us to a heart-stopping moment. Our dear doctor was not only sentenced to a good time behind bars, but he also had to open his wallet and shell out a staggering sum. I'll tell you the amount at the end of the video, but I can assure you could build a solid gold mansion with that amount, or buy a fleet of sports cars for every day of the week. Now then, get ready for the highlight of this Hollywood-worthy story in white coats. Jacques Roy, a doctor with a passion for financial drama, was accused and convicted of a salad of crimes worthy of a criminal cookbook. Not one, not two, but a whole collection of charges. These included, for example, conspiracy to commit healthcare fraud. Yeah, medical conspiracy. Plus 8 counts of healthcare fraud. That's like someone trying to fill your prescription for unlimited bad jokes. And not to be outdone, also 2 counts of making false statements related to healthcare matters. He must have been juggling false prescriptions and diagnoses like a circus juggler. To top it off, there's even more. A charge of obstruction of justice, as if his criminal record needed a little extra drama. Ladies and gentlemen, keep your health scales balanced, because the story does not end here. Turns out this prodigious doctor was in custody from 2012 to 2017. That's a longer stay than a beach vacation. Who knew a doctor's attire could be so unflattering in prison? And speaking of healthcare, it turns out Roy had a taste for home healthcare services. Yeah, those services where doctors visit you at home, as if you were a sick VIP. But here comes the comical twist. Some of these people who supposedly needed home care were working on their cars. They must have thought that homebound meant confined to your garage. If this is medical care, then I'm an astronaut on my couch. No doubt my friend's Dr. Roy was the Mozart of home health care. Daniel Levinson, Inspector General of the Department of Health and Human Services, provided the following. A typical physician certifies about 100 patients for home health care services, while Roy personally certified thousands. He must have had a certification button on his desk that used more than his coffee mug. However, good old Roy was not only racking up charges, He was also racking up dollars. Specifically, he used home healthcare agencies to recruit patients and bill for medical services that were never rendered. It's like billing for imaginary giggle therapies. The icing on the cake is that the amounts of money involved in this fraud scheme were bigger than the appetite of an elephant in a buffet. Amazing, huge, discountable. The federal prosecutor must have needed a moving truck to carry all those amounts. Back in the now distant year of 2004, when Dr. Roy decided to delve into the exciting world of medical fraud, home health care was like the new boarding school on Grey's Anatomy. Everyone was talking about it and wanted to be part of the craze. Imagine doctors making house calls, as if they were the gallant emergency room gallants in a very quirky version of Gray Sloan Memorial. Back then, of course, Medicare jumped into the fray, funding these visits as if sponsoring a special episode of the show. From here, the first plot twist worthy of a hospital drama emerges. The wily Dr. Roy saw the opportunity and decided that if he was going to play, he was going to play big. According to attorney Drews, the practice quickly caught on, and Dr. Roy intended to cash in on it. Imagine Dr. Roy as the hooded hero of healthcare, determined to save his bank account. Turns out good old Roy wasn't satisfied with house calls. No! He wanted a bigger cast, more fake billing, and more patients involved in his circus of deceit. So he recruited more Medicare patients as if he were forming an off-key chorus of accomplices in this symphony of fraud. We can imagine him calling the shots like a director in a B-movie. The big revelation was that Dr. Roy wasn't just playing with a company or two. No, sir. He was coordinating his scam show with over 500 home healthcare companies. That's more companies than there are episodes in a season of The Good Doctor. Imagine Dr. Roy as the ringmaster of a medical circus, with patients and companies taking part in his elaborate act. And in the midst of all this, we come across his How to Hide Your Stuff and Disappear manual that Dr. Roy must have had tucked away on his bookshelf. Who would have thought that a doctor would dive so deeply into the world of deception? He could have opted to be the next star of a medical reality show, but instead chose a more judicially exciting path. It turns out that this medical fraud that could rival the most intrepid of thrillers involved a group of unscrupulous people who, as if they were in a soap opera, conspired together to defraud innocent Medicare and Medicaid. The companies on the scene included Metastat Group Associates, PA, Apple of Your Eye Healthcare Services, Ultimate Care Home Health Services, and Cherry Home Care Services. Sounds like a list of the most wanted companies in the world of white coat crime. However, here are the stars of our show: Dr. Roy, Steiger, Vesey, and Elida. These aforementioned were not just accomplices, but were experts at creating a criminal orchestra worthy of an opera. The charges ranged from conspiracy to fraud and forgery, all included in the menu of the day. If this were a restaurant, surely they would have a section called Criminal Specialties. And speaking of the menu, it looks like Dr. Roy and his team decided to serve up a feast of fakes. They improperly recruited Medicare patients and forged medical documents as if they were chefs creating gourmet dishes. In fact, here's the comic spark. Elida, one of the accomplices, recruited patients at a homeless shelter and even paid $1.50 for each beneficiary she found. It looks like she was at some sort of medical recruitment fair in the parking lot of Compassion. However, the fraud fest does not end there. It turns out that Dr. Roy and his team put on a whole show of fake signatures and fraudulent certifications. They even had a Department 485 inches to put up all these fraudulent masterpieces. Imagine an office full of people signing papers as if they were in a signing competition. Once a person was certified for services, they all joined in to forge visit notes and claim unnecessary medical services. What a parade of criminal creativity. Even Dr. Roy himself joined in the fun, making unnecessary home visits and ordering medical services that were just as necessary as a hat on a fish. No doubt the scope of good old Roy's fraud was as great as his ambition. They certified care plans for 11,000 unique Medicare beneficiaries from over 500 different agencies. That's more plots than in a detective series. Could these insurance fraudsters with stethoscopes escape the law? The stage was set for this criminal comedy. The FBI, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Office of Inspector General, and the Texas Attorney General's Medicaid Fraud Control Unit teamed up in a symphony of investigation. Imagine all these white-coated detectives chasing the scammers like the Sherlock Holmes of medicine. The comical part is that all these crooks, including good old Roy, were arrested in 2012 on a variety of medical fraud charges. They must have had an arrest party with confetti of fake prescriptions. And speaking of parties, prosecutors were in full swing during the trial. Dr. Roy engaged in an amazing long-running fraud scheme, they said, as if they were describing an extravagant magic show. In fact, when they asked that he not be allowed bail, I'm sure they imagined Dr. Roy trying to escape disguised as a hospital gown. In this context, a Texas judge sentenced a woman to 10 years in prison and made her pay over $23 million in restitution for Medicare and Medicaid. Imagine a medical bill of that magnitude. It's as if the government is saying, "Oh, this is for all the phony prescriptions and imaginary diagnoses, please." Given this, what would be left for our protagonist doctor? Of course, the Justice Department also tried to seize all of Dr. Roy's property, including 2 sailboats. Imagine good old Roy trying to escape in his one-trick pony while the FBI chased him in a ducky boat. Turns out our doctor also used another company to pursue his master plan of medical deception. He changed his name, but not his caper. It's as if he's trying to escape his misdeeds with a change of moniker. In a story that's like a lost episode of Medical Criminals, we meet Special Agent Chelsea Drews, who, in the best Sherlock Holmes style in a coat, unraveled the threads of a plot that would make even the healthiest patients cough in amazement. As Drews would say, "It is sad when people in the medical community who enjoy a level of trust and responsibility decide to take cruel advantage of sick and elderly patients." Oh, dear Jacques. It looks like your time of playing hide-and-seek with justice was coming to an end after a trial worthy of a serial marathon where we were all anxious to know if you would manage to pull off a Houdini with the allegations. The sentence finally came down on you like a hammer on the gong. U.S. District Judge Sam A. Lindsay, who was obviously not in the mood for medical jokes, ruled that Roy would spend the next 35 years and 7 months in federal prison. Yeah, you heard right. In addition, he was also tasked with the girly job of shelling out the small sum of $268,147,699.15 in restitution. Did you ever imagine that your aspiration to be a millionaire would have such a specific figure? What an honor. So, dear Jacques, while you enjoy life behind bars, at least you can boast of having set a record, the largest medical bill in history. And so, my intrepid viewers, we reach the twilight of this medical epic that could well have been written by Hollywood screenwriters. From prescriptions as bogus as promises from someone who tells you they'll only take a slice of your pizza, to sailboats with names more creative than your friends' nicknames at school, we've surfed a thrilling ride full of laughs and twists worthy of a sitcom flick. Tell us in the comments if you've ever been tempted to cross over to the dark side of financial shenanigans. Because let's face it, we've all had that moment when we look at a shortcut and think, what could possibly go wrong? But stop right there. Before you dive into the fridge in search of food, you still don't know this story of another insurance hunter? I wouldn't miss it.